Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever found yourself completely blindsided by someone you thought you knew inside and out?
Oh, yeah. It is a deeply terrifying feeling.
Right. You are walking through your normal life, doing your regular routine, and suddenly the ground beneath your feet just vanishes.
Completely disappeared.
And you are left staring at the person you share a bed with, the person you share your entire life with, and you realize you have absolutely no idea what is going on inside their head.
That is exactly the territory we are exploring today.
It is. We are going to navigate the incredibly complex, often really messy, and deeply emotional aftermath of trauma.
Specifically looking at how it ripples through our closest relationships.
It's a heavy topic, but it touches so many lives.
It really does, and yet we rarely talk about the actual mechanics of it in our daily lives.
Because society is very good at talking about the event itself.
Right. We discuss the trauma, the accident, the loss.
The immediate hospital stay.
Exactly. The physical recovery, we celebrate the survival.
But we do not talk about the Tuesday afternoon, maybe 6 months later, when you were trying to buy groceries.
When your physical wounds are mostly healed.
But your marriage is quietly falling apart in the frozen food aisle.
Because the psychological wounds were never addressed.
So, to help us unpack this today, we are using a really brilliant piece of source material.
We are going to treat this almost like a psychological case study.
For those taking notes, the book name is No Matter What by Cara Bastone.
And we should be clear right off the bat here.
Yes, this is a novel. It is a work of fiction.
But we're using it today because the author has constructed a narrative that so perfectly captures very real, very heavy human experiences.
It's painfully accurate.
Right.
We're going to use this story to dissect marital miscommunication, the insidious nature of post-traumatic stress, and art.
The truly surprising ways that art can act as a lifeline.
Whether that is drawing a picture or telling a story, it could be a form of therapy when words completely fail us.
That is our intellectual mission for this deep dive. We are going to unpack a very specific, very dangerous fallacy.
Which is the idea that physical survival automatically equates to emotional survival.
Exactly. We are going to look at how two people can be sitting in the exact same room, experience the exact same tragic event, survive it together, and yet require entirely different roadmaps to heal from it.
It is a terrifying realization that your partner's survival mechanism might look completely foreign to you.
It might even look exactly like abandonment.
So I want you, the listener, to put yourself in the shoes of our protagonist, Roz.
Just imagine this scenario.
You are having what you think is a normal day. You walk into your kitchen, which is your safe space, right? The heart of your home.
And there, sitting on the counter, is a sheaf of papers.
You walk over, maybe a little confused, and you look down. It is a lease for a new apartment.
A new apartment in Brooklyn.
With a start date of August 15th. And it has your husband, Vin's name all over it.
And it is not just sitting there haphazardly. It has been deliberately placed.
Pinned to the kitchen counter, held down by a massive 28-ounce can of diced tomatoes.
A 28-ounce can.
Imagine the sheer shock of that moment. Your husband of 8 years is leaving you in increments.
First, he moves to the far side of the bed.
Then he moves to the guest room.
And now he is getting a new apartment entirely.
And the way he chooses to communicate this final devastating blow is by leaving a legal document under canned goods.
It's just so abrupt.
I read this and thought, why doesn't she immediately grab her phone and scream at him? Why doesn't she burst into tears and collapse on the floor?
Because trauma and shock rarely look like they do in the movies.
Right.
When we experience a profound emotional blow, the brain often scrambles to find a sense of safety and control.
So Roz does not do the stereotypical dramatic reaction.
She looks at the lease, she looks at the tomatoes, and she recognizes a gauntlet being thrown down.
She is experiencing a massive loss of agency. Her marriage is apparently ending without her consent or input.
So her brain seeks out an environment where she has total agency.
She gets a glass of wine, which she actually notes has somehow found its way into her trembling hand, and she assesses the situation.
And she realizes the significance of the tomatoes.
Because he could have used a 12-ounce can. He could have used a paperweight.
He could have just left it bare on the counter.
But he chose 28 ounces of diced tomatoes. And Roz knows exactly why.
Because when Roz's world is crumbling, her immediate instinct is to feed people.
What's fascinating here is what we call the armor of routine.
We all have one. Think about what you do when you receive terrible news, or when you are so overwhelmed you cannot process a single conscious thought.
Some people clean their houses baseboard to ceiling.
Some people run 10 miles until their lungs burn.
Roz cooks. In the text, she actually notes that when her world is gorgeous and shining with the light of 1,000 Instagram filters, she feeds people.
And when her world is ending,
She feeds people. Cooking is her zone of competence.
it is the one place where she knows the rules. She knows the inputs and she can control the outputs.
When the macro narrative of her life is spiraling into chaos, the micro narrative of a recipe provides a lifeline.
So she looks at this 28-ounce can and she essentially says, game on.
She puts on her second favorite striped apron, the one that makes her feel capable, like Martha Stewart.
And she starts making what we can only call divorce tomato sauce.
The scene is so visceral. She is dicing onions into the neatest squares she has ever managed.
Peeling garlic with terrifying speed.
She notes the satisfying hiss when the garlic hits the hot oil. She is taking all of her panic, all of her heartbreak, and she's channeling it into culinary precision.
It is a stunning display of compartmentalization.
Can you break that down a bit?
Sure. Compartmentalization is a psychological defense mechanism. It's where people mentally separate conflicting thoughts, emotions, or experiences to avoid the discomfort of contradiction.
So she's basically putting all her terror about the end of her marriage into a box.
Shoving that box into the back of her mind and focusing entirely on the sensory experience of cooking.
The smell of the garlic, the heat of the stove, the rhythm of the knife.
It grounds her in the physical present so she does not have to inhabit her emotional reality.
And then comes the blender.
Oh yes, the immersion blender.
She takes an immersion blender to these tomatoes. She describes revving it in the air like a chainsaw murderer.
She plunges it into the pot, obliterating the tomatoes, turning them to velvet.
And in her fervor, her hand slips. The blender kicks up, and a streak of red tomato sauce paints a zebra stripe right across the kitchen counter.
And right across the lease.
She literally describes it as a splash of red across the death certificate.
It is a brilliant visual metaphor. She is quite literally bleeding her emotions onto this document that signifies the death of her marriage.
The violence of the immersion blender is the only acceptable outlet for her rage.
But notice how she handles the aftermath. She still does not stop and break down.
No, she simmers the sauce. She cleans the kitchen perfectly.
She takes the lease, wipes the worst of the sauce off it, and pins it to the fridge door with a magnet.
Right next to the grocery lists. Step 1, get a divorce. Step 2, buy mushrooms.
That is the armor of routine functioning at its absolute peak. She is normalizing the abnormal.
If she treats the lease like a grocery list, maybe it won't destroy her.
And then we get to the climax of this inciting incident.
The key turns in the lock. Vin comes home.
He steps into the apartment.
Roz turns to him, wearing her apron, the perfect picture of domestic normalcy.
While the lease with a red stain on it hangs on the fridge behind her.
He looks at the counter, which is empty. He looks at the fridge. He looks at her.
He is breathing hard.
He has this look on his face, this intensely determined, did she see it yet expression,
And she licks the tomato sauce off her finger.
and says, with complete chilling casualness, sauce is on the stove if you're hungry.
And what does Vin do in response to this incredibly loaded statement?
He looks at the lease. He looks at her. The silence stretches out, absolutely deafening.
And then he turns around, walks back out the door, and closes it behind him like he was never even there.
It's wild. If we connect this to the bigger picture of relationship psychology, what are we actually seeing here?
We're seeing two people who are entirely fluent in the subtext of their marriage, but completely incapable of speaking the text.
They have been together for 8 years.
In a long-term relationship, even grocery items become loaded with historical meaning.
The 28-ounce can is a message.
The tomato sauce on the lease is a message.
The invitation to eat the sauce is a message.
But because neither of them is actually using words to describe their pain, the messages are getting warped in translation.
They are caught in this silent, agonizing dance. Roz is using the sauce to say, I see what you were doing, and I am surviving it.
While Vin sees the casual invitation and interprets it as, she doesn't care that I'm leaving.
It makes you want to pull your hair out. You listening to this might be thinking, just talk to each other.
Just ask him why he's leaving.
Just tell her how you feel. But to understand why this deafening silence exists, why they are communicating through canned goods and stained paperwork instead of just having a conversation,
we have to rewind.
we have to look at the massive, terrifying elephant in the room. We have to look at the big bad wolf of their story.
Because this isn't just a couple who drifted apart.
No, The inciting incident of the novel is the lease on the counter, but the inciting incident of their marital breakdown happened a full year prior.
It was a completely normal day. Roz, Vin, and Vin's younger brother, Raph, were sitting in a cafe.
And in an instant, everything changed. A truck crashed straight through the plate glass window of the cafe.
It is the ultimate nightmare scenario.
You are sipping coffee, laughing with your family, and the next second, you are fighting for your life amid shattering glass and twisting metal.
In the chaos of the crash, Vin threw himself over Roz. He shielded her with his own body.
As a result, Vin took the brunt of the glass. He ended up with a 14-inch scar slicing down his back.
Raph, the younger brother, had his arm and hand completely shattered.
While Roz, protected by Vin, escaped with a 4-inch laceration on her collarbone and a sprained shoulder.
They survived. Physically, they made it out.
The EMTs arrived, the surgeries happened, the physical wounds were stitched up.
But this is where the psychological roadmaps diverge. Post-accident, Roz and Vin immediately shifted into caretaking mode.
Because Raph was severely injured, he needed intensive physical therapy, he needed help with daily tasks, he needed emotional support.
For months, Roz and Vin became his nurses, his cheerleaders, his entire support system.
Roz describes it as going on autopilot. She says taking care of Raph was incredibly hard, exhausting work, but in a weird way, it was simple.
The mission was clear. Keep Raph buoyant.
Feed him, distract him, take him to the Museum of Ice Cream, make sure he does his physical therapy.
When Raph was living with them, the marital issues could be deferred.
Because there was a crisis to manage, and crisis management requires immediate practical action.
This is a very common phenomenon in families that experience shared trauma. The initial stage is often characterized by mobilization.
Right, the nervous system is flooded with adrenaline.
Exactly. Adrenaline and cortisol. You are in fight or flight, but because the immediate threat is gone, it channels into fix and manage.
Taking care of Raph gave them a shared project that masked their individual trauma.
But this raises an important question. What happens when the crisis is over?
Because eventually, Raph heals, he gets better, he gets his own apartment and moves out.
And suddenly, the noise of caretaking fades away.
And that is when the bottom falls out.
Yeah.
Without Raph to focus on, they are left in the deafening silence of their own apartment.
They are alone together for the first time since they almost died.
And they have to look at each other.
And when they look at each other, they do not just see their spouse, they see the accident.
They see the trauma.
This is the insidious nature of post-traumatic stress within a relationship. The partner becomes deeply intertwined with the trauma memory network in the brain.
This is where Vin starts sleeping on the far side of the bed.
Then he moves to the guest room.
Then eventually he starts looking for that apartment in Brooklyn.
We really need to break down what post-traumatic stress entails here, because the book explores it so well.
It isn't just feeling sad or scared. It physically changes how they interact.
Roz has a conversation with her coworker, Deb.
They jokingly call Deb, "Hey, Google," because she has lived this incredibly full life. She went to culinary school, she was a nurse, she traveled with Doctors Without Borders, she has a pilot's license.
She has seen a lot of the world and a lot of human suffering.
So Roz is sitting in the work kitchen, eating a sandwich, and she just casually asks Deb, "What do you know about PTSD? Is it real?"
That question alone is heartbreaking.
It really is.
It shows how much society gaslights trauma survivors. She is drowning in the symptoms of PTSD, and she is still trying to figure out if the water is actually wet or if she's just making it up.
Deb stops what she's doing. She closes the door to the kitchen, and she gives Roz the hard truth. She says, yes, it is real.
And then they get into the specific way it is manifesting for Roz.
Roz admits something to Deb that she hasn't admitted to anyone else. She is furious.
She tells Deb that she hates the idea that Vin almost died for her.
Which feels completely backward to everything we've been taught by movies and pop culture. Why would she be angry about that?
Because the reality of someone dying for you is an unbearable burden.
It really subverts the classic romance trope, doesn't it?
Completely. In so many stories, the hero shielding the heroine with his body is portrayed as the ultimate act of romantic devotion.
It is supposed to be this beautiful, swoon-worthy moment that cements their love forever.
But psychologically, being the person who was saved at the immense physical cost of another creates a profound, complex trauma.
Ross says it isn't romantic to her at all. It is sickening. It is terrifying.
Right. Deb hits the nail on the head. She tells Roz, if he died for you, do you know how awful your life would have been after that? I don't blame you for being angry.
What we're looking at here is the mechanism of survivor's guilt mutating into resentment.
Survivor's guilt is the profound feeling that you have done something wrong by surviving a traumatic event when others did not, or by escaping injury when others were hurt.
Roz feels incredibly guilty that Vin took the physical injury. That 14-inch scar on his back is a constant physical reminder that he absorbed the damage meant for her.
But guilt is an incredibly heavy emotion to carry long term. It implies a debt that can never be repaid.
How do you repay someone for your life? You can't.
And because Roz does not know how to process that unpayable debt, the guilt morphs into a prickly, defensive anger.
She resents him for making her feel so helpless, so indebted, and so terrified of losing him.
And this anger, this unaddressed trauma, it infiltrates the most intimate spaces of their marriage.
Let's pause here for a second and look at the trigger scene, because this is heavy, and it illustrates perfectly why they cannot simply comfort each other.
Yes. This scene is crucial for understanding the physiological reality of PTSD. It is not just a mental memory. It is a full-body experience.
So they are in the kitchen. Roz drops a tomato,
Right?
and Vin comes up behind her to comfort her. One thing leads to another, and they end up in the bedroom.
It seems like a breakthrough.
Yeah, they're finally going to connect physically, which they haven't done in months.
They fall onto the bed, and Vin lies his weight on top of her.
And instantly, Roz has a massive panic attack.
She screams.
She violently shoves him off of her. She is gasping for air, totally panicked.
Imagine that whiplash for a second. Vin is trying to reconnect with his wife, and suddenly she is treating him like a threat to her life.
From Vin's perspective, he is completely bewildered and hurt. He thinks he is showing love.
But we have to look at the neurobiology of a flashback. When a trauma occurs, the brain's alarm system—
The amygdala.
Exactly. The amygdala goes into overdrive, and the part of the brain responsible for logical, chronological storytelling, the prefrontal cortex, often goes offline.
So the trauma is not stored as a cohesive story.
It is stored as fragmented sensory data. The smell of dust, the sound of breaking glass, the physical sensation of a heavy weight pressing down.
So when Vin puts his weight on her,
From Roz's physiological perspective, she is no longer in her safe bedroom. Her nervous system has instantly teleported her back to the blue tile floor of the cafe.
because the last time Vin lay perfectly still on top of her, trapping her beneath his weight, she thought he was dead in the rubble.
Her body remembered the physical sensation of his weight, and it triggered an automatic survival response.
She wasn't pushing her husband away.
No.
She was pushing a corpse off her chest so she could breathe.
God, it gives me chills just thinking about it.
She says to him later, "I can't believe I can't handle it when you lie on top of me anymore. I love when you lie on top of me. That's always been the best place in the world."
But this time your arms were around me and something bad happened to you. Something bad happening to you is the worst thing that could ever happen to me.
That is the ultimate tragedy of trauma in a relationship. The very thing that used to bring comfort
His physical embrace, his weight, his scent.
has been weaponized by her brain into a trigger for terror.
They have lost their safe harbor. They cannot soothe each other because they are the source of each other's flashbacks.
The partner who used to regulate their nervous system is now the stimulus that dysregulates it.
So we have this massive gulf between them. Vin is moving out, or at least setting up the logistics to do so.
Roz is trapped in this apartment, cooking obsessive amounts of bean lasagna and divorced tomato sauce, trying to maintain an illusion of control.
The isolation is suffocating.
She needs to get out of the house. She needs something, anything, to distract her from the silence of the apartment and the blank space where her husband used to be.
And completely by accident, trying to escape a torrential downpour, she stumbles into a community center and ends up in a Friday night figure drawing class.
And here is where the thematic core of the deep dive really opens up. The concept of art as a mechanism for processing trauma.
It is important to note why finding this class was so crucial. When you are isolated in trauma, your internal narrative goes unchecked.
You replay the same fears over and over.
Stepping into a new environment disrupts that loop.
So she joins this drawing class. But it's not what you'd expect, right? She meets this instructor, Daniel.
And Daniel is not interested in pretty pictures or shading spheres.
He has this whole philosophy about stick figures.
Yes. Daniel gives a lecture to the class that essentially becomes the thesis statement for Roz's psychological journey. He goes to the whiteboard and he draws a stick figure.
And he says to the class, a stick figure is instantly recognizable, sure, but it is never honest.
He demands that they draw what they actually see, not what their brain tells them should be there.
He says there is no lamentable attempt in art. The only failure is the failure to try.
He wants them to draw the actual awkward, lumpy, complicated lines of the human body in front of them, rather than relying on the simplistic symbols they have memorized since childhood.
How does that connect to what she is going through at home?
This concept of the stick figure versus the truth is incredibly profound when we apply it to human relationships, and specifically to Roz's marriage.
When we are overwhelmed by emotional pain, our brains look for cognitive shortcuts.
The world feels too chaotic, so we categorize things quickly to feel safe. We reduce complex, nuanced situations into simple, recognizable narratives.
We draw mental stick figures.
That makes so much sense. Roz has been looking at her marriage as a stick figure.
The narrative in her head is very simple, very binary. My husband doesn't want me anymore. He signed a lease. He is leaving me. I am a failure.
That is the stick figure version of the story. It is easy to recognize, it fits a common societal trope of the failed marriage, and most importantly, it requires no deep investigation.
It hurts, but it is a familiar, predictable hurt.
But the reality, the actual lines and shadows of their marriage, are vastly more complex.
Vin is looking at apartments, yes.
Mm.
But he is also calling her when he has a fever because she is the only one he wants comfort from.
He's bringing her favorite food. He is holding her when she falls and scrapes her hands.
The reality is a mess of contradictory actions driven by trauma, guilt, profound love, and fear.
But Roz has stopped looking at the reality. She is just reacting to the stick figure she drew in her mind.
Tolerating ambiguity, accepting that someone can love you desperately and still need to move out, is incredibly hard in trauma recovery.
Trauma demands black and white thinking for survival. Daniel's class is forcing her back into the gray area.
The author actually talks about this in the Behind the Book section. She notes that drawing is the reverse of writing.
When you write, you are taking an internal feeling and trying to find the external words or metaphors to describe it. You are translating emotion into language.
But drawing works from the outside in. It strips away the words entirely.
And when you have experienced a trauma where there are no words left, drawing forces you to just look.
You have to observe the painful truth of what is right in front of you without the filter of language.
There is a deep neurobiological basis for this. Visual processing engages different parts of the brain than verbal processing.
During a traumatic event, Broca's area
The part of the brain responsible for speech and language.
often goes offline. This is why trauma survivors frequently say they have no words to describe what happened.
Art therapy mechanisms bypass the language centers and tap directly into the sensory and emotional centers of the brain.
By forcing herself to look at a model and draw the exact lines, Roz is training her brain to observe reality without instantly assigning a narrative to it.
We see this play out with another student in the class, M.
M is furious with this guy, Loro, whom she loves.
But she comes to class and Laura is there, and M just angrily, aggressively draws him.
And Roz watches this, and she has this epiphany. She realizes we draw what we want to understand.
That is the moment the light bulb goes on for Roz. You do not draw something because you already perfectly comprehend it.
You draw it to figure it out. You trace the lines to map the territory of your confusion.
So Roz goes home, and Vin's work boots are sitting by the door.
And Roz gets out her drawing pad, and she starts to obsessively draw his boots.
She draws them over and over.
And in the act of looking at these boots, looking at the scuffs, the wear, the shape of the foot of the man she thinks is abandoning her, she bypasses the stick figure narrative.
She isn't thinking husband who's leaving. She is just looking at the evidence of his existence.
What does she realize through this process?
The act of drawing strips away the noise. It quiets the panic of the amygdala.
And through that quiet observation, she realizes that despite the anger, despite the trauma, despite the lease under the diced tomatoes,
She still loves him. She loves him desperately.
she describes the feeling as expansive, not over.
She writes the word infinity, infinity, infinity
Mm.
next to the drawings.
It is a terrifying realization because it means she cannot just neatly close the book on the marriage.
The stick figure allowed for a clean break. The actual drawing reveals that she is still deeply, inextricably tethered to him.
Now, what is fascinating is that while Roz is going through this profound, silent, internal visual processing, Vin is on a completely parallel but opposite journey.
While she is drawing in quiet rooms, he is standing under bright lights with a microphone.
Yes. Vin is secretly performing at a Moth-style live storytelling event in Brooklyn.
He is getting up on stage in front of a room full of strangers and telling stories about his life, and specifically about Roz.
Let's contrast these coping mechanisms. Why does Vin need a stage while Roz needs a sketchbook?
It highlights the beautifully complementary nature of their relationship, even when it is broken. Roz processes visually, it is internal, silent observation.
She needs to look at the lines to ground herself.
Vin processes verbally, it is external, communal sharing. He needs to speak the words aloud to figure out what the story actually is.
But more importantly, Vin is carrying an immense burden of guilt. He needs witnesses.
He needs an audience to bear witness to his pain, his love, and his perceived failures.
Telling the story is a way of externalizing the trauma, taking it out of his own head and placing it in the room.
We get to hear a couple of the stories he tells on stage, and they are incredibly revealing about his psychology.
One is called The Cat Doesn't Come Back. He talks about a bodega cat he rescued as a kid.
The cat kept running away, going back to the bodega.
And Vin's brother Raph said, let's just wait and see if she comes back on her own.
But Vin couldn't wait. He went and got the cat.
He says to the audience, maybe if I had waited long enough, I'd have gotten to learn that the cat comes back. But maybe I'd have learned that the cat comes back to the bodega. But not to me. And I didn't want to learn that.
This story is a perfect metaphor for his entire approach to love and caretaking. It reveals the psychological profile of a chronic rescuer.
Vin is a fixer. He pursues. He rescues.
He does not tolerate the vulnerability of waiting to see if love will return. He actively goes and retrieves it.
He asks the audience what's worse, having a cat that leaves you, or having no cat at all.
He is terrified that if he stops actively holding on to Roz, if he stops managing the situation, she will realize she doesn't need him. His caretaking is a shield against abandonment.
And then he tells a story about this smile moment.
This is the moment he realized he was in love with Roz.
It wasn't some grand romantic gesture. It was watching her smile at his brother, Raph.
He describes it as a smile with truly zero artifice.
And he says, I knew that I wanted to know what it would feel like to be on the receiving end of that exact smile.
This leads into what is perhaps the most crucial insight into Vin's psychological makeup, his concept of immortality.
We have to understand the burden Vin has carried since childhood.
Since he was 11 years old, Vin's sole purpose in life was keeping his brother Raph safe.
He viewed himself merely as a guardian, a human shield for someone else's life.
He actually says on stage that he always knew he needed to live a very long time so he could outlive Raph simply to protect him.
He wasn't living for himself. He was living to prevent Raph's death.
But then he met Roz, and Roz loved Raph just as fiercely as Vin did.
Exactly. Vin says loving her meant loving him, meant putting my heart into someone else's body. She's not going to let my brother be alone even if I'm dead.
For the first time in his life, Vin felt he had permission to be mortal.
Loving Roz meant he could finally die in peace, knowing someone else would carry the baton.
He calls this feeling immortality. He was extending his protective reach beyond his mortal confines.
And then the accident happens. The big bad wolf comes.
Vin is on the ground in the cafe, bleeding out, thinking he is dying.
But instead of terror, he feels a strange peace. He shielded her. He saved her.
He says to the audience, at least now that I've got the rest of my life to live, at least I know that I've got something to die for.
But that is the tragedy. He found something to die for, but Roz does not want him to die for her.
She wants him to learn how to live with her.
And Vin is trapped in the aftermath. He thought the wolf was gone after the crash.
But he tells the crowd, the wolf comes back every time someone honks a horn. It comes back every time he sees the scar on Roz's collarbone.
They are living in a haunted house of their own memories, unable to bridge the gap between his readiness to die for her and her desperate need for him to live.
So we have these two people processing their immense pain in parallel universes. Roz drawing boots, Vin telling stories to strangers.
And all of this tension, all of these misinterpretations, it all finally boils over into the climax of the story, the living room confrontation.
This is where the stick figures are finally erased, and they are forced to look at the messy, complicated reality.
Roz has reached her breaking point. She asks him point blank, "Why are you doing this? Why did you sign that lease if you keep doing all these loving things for me?
You fix the light fixtures, you bring me food, you hold me when I cry."
Why are you acting like a husband if you're leaving?"
And Vin reveals the ultimate twist of the narrative. He looks at her, completely bewildered, and says, "I didn't sign it."
Roz is stunned. She runs to the kitchen, pulls a lease off the fridge.
The one that has been hanging there for weeks, under the Coney Island magnet with the faded tomato sauce stain on it.
And she looks at the last page. The signature line is completely blank. He never signed it.
So she built this entire narrative, planned a divorce, all based on a blank signature line.
Yes, and this illustrates the ultimate danger of assumptions.
It is the danger of drawing a stick figure and refusing to look closer.
Roz saw the lease, saw what she feared most, abandonment, and she stopped looking.
Her brain went into panic mode. She blended the tomatoes. She declared the marriage dead, but she never actually verified the signature.
She was blinded by her own terror. The fear of abandonment was so strong that she manufactured the evidence to support it, rather than risk the vulnerability of asking for clarification.
But we have to look at Vin's intent here too, because it is equally flawed. If he didn't sign it, why did he leave a lease under canned goods in the first place?
Vin's plan was born of profound love, but it was deeply misguided by trauma.
Vin explains that he got the lease because he saw Roz suffering. He knew his presence, his physical body, was a trigger for her panic attacks.
He thought she needed space to heal without the constant reminder of the trauma, but he did not want to leave.
So he went to a custom framer, the eccentric St. Michel, and had a beautiful photograph of the two of them framed.
His plan was to present Roz with both options simultaneously.
He wanted to give her a choice.
Yes. In one hand, the unsigned lease, offering her a way out, offering her space if she needed it to breathe without feeling guilty.
In the other hand, the framed photo, symbolizing his desire to stay, to fight for the marriage.
He wanted to give her the ultimate choice. It was an act of profound respect for her autonomy post-trauma.
Trauma strips away agency. Vin was trying to give it back to her.
But he never got to present the choice. He left the lease on the counter under the tomatoes to hold it flat, planning to come back with the photo.
But Roz found it first, made the sauce, and the narrative was set in stone before he could even speak.
When he walked in and saw her cold, casual reaction, "Sauce is on the stove," he assumed she had made her choice. He assumed she wanted him gone.
And this massive misunderstanding hinges on one specific argument they had, the fine argument, how language fails them again.
Yes, Roz brings it up. She says, "You said you would be fine without me." She interpreted that as, "I don't need you."
And Vin corrects the record. He breaks down the semantics of what he actually meant.
He says, "I never said I would be fine without you. I said I know how to cook."
He explains that he knows how to feed himself. He survived before he met her. But he chooses to let her cook for him. He chooses to let her care for him because that is what they do for each other.
He says, "If I really did leave because you wanted me to, I wouldn't be fine, but I would feed myself."
It is the difference between independence and chosen dependence.
Exactly. Rose assumed I can cook meant I don't need you.
Right.
Vin meant I am capable of surviving, but my preference is to be dependent on you because I love you.
It is the difference between mere survival and actual living. Vin is saying he would survive without her, but he wouldn't be truly living.
He needs her not for basic biological survival, but for the emotional sustenance of a shared life.
The relief in that living room is palpable. The stick figures are gone. They are looking at the actual messy, complicated truth of their love.
But, and this is so crucial, the narrative does not resolve with a magic wand. Finding out he didn't sign the lease doesn't cure their PTSD.
It doesn't magically erase the triggers or the 14-inch scar.
No, it doesn't. And that is the brilliance and honesty of this story. Healing isn't a reset button. You cannot simply hit undo on a trauma.
Towards the end of the story, they go visit Vin's mother, Ramona. They are in her garden, and Ramona drops this quiet piece of wisdom on Roz.
She points out that Vin has been a caretaker his entire life. He took care of his mother when she was struggling. He raised his brother Raph. He is the ultimate protector.
But Ramona tells Roz, "You're the only one he ever lets take care of him."
It is a stunning realization for Roz. She had been so focused on how Vin saved her physically in the accident, she forgot that she saves him emotionally every single day just by letting him rest.
By feeding him, by being his home, she provides the one place in the world where the guardian does not have to stand watch.
He is the guardian, but she is the sanctuary. And a guardian cannot survive without a sanctuary to return to.
And it all comes back to a phrase that echoes throughout the book. Earlier in the story, when they were in a crowded bar navigating the icy distance between them, Roz caught Vin's eye across the room.
And she mouthed 3 words to him, no matter what.
It wasn't a romantic platitude. It was a fierce vow of survival. She was telling him, "I am going to keep living. I am going to survive this pain no matter what happens between us."
But at the end, after they have laid everything bare, the phrase is transformed. Roz asks Vin the ultimate question.
She says, "Will you stay married to me for the rest of our lives?"
And Vin pulls her close, and he repeats her vow back to her.
Yeah.
He says, "I will." no matter what.
So it shifts from "I will survive this despite you" to "we will survive this together."
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the ultimate theme here is about integration.
You cannot delete a traumatic chapter from the book of your life and expect to get the same ending.
The accident happened, the scars are there, the panic attacks might still happen.
Roz has this beautiful realization where she says she no longer wants to try to get over it. To act like it never happened is just denial.
She says, maybe we never really get over anything. It just becomes a part of your drawing, a part of your story. You have to learn how to accept it. It happened. It's real. We're here on the other side.
True healing is taking the darkest, ugliest colors and figuring out how to incorporate them into your life's drawing.
It is looking at the 14-inch scar and accepting it as part of the landscape of your marriage.
It is shifting from the isolated mindset of me and Vin against the world, which was their trauma response, to a much healthier, integrated mindset of me and Vin, a part of the world.
They are injured, yes. They are healing. But as Roz says at the very end, they are shooting for infinity.
What a journey.
We set out to explore how trauma fractures relationships and, no matter what, uses the seemingly light canvas of a romance novel to paint an incredibly gritty, unglamorous, and deeply honest portrait of the hard work required to sustain love after the worst day of your life.
It shows us that healing demands we drop the immersion blender, step away from the stick figures of our assumptions, and dare to look at the hard, messy lines of the truth.
I want to leave you with this final thought to mull over. Think about the biggest conflict in your own life right now. Maybe it is with a partner, a friend, or a colleague.
Are you looking at the actual lines and shadows of the situation?
Or are you just reacting to a stick figure you have drawn in your own head because it is easier or safer to deal with a simple villain than a complex reality?
What would happen if you forced yourself to look closer?
If you put down the narrative you've been clinging to and simply observe the reality of the person in front of you.
That is a powerful question worth carrying with you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking closely at your own stories, keep drawing outside the lines, and we will catch you next time.